A huge thank you to Squarespace, today's sponsor. Squarespace is the easiest way to start your own website. Today we're comparing two DACs with headphone amps internal to them, similarly equipped. I don't know what they cost. I'm gonna guess. I don't know which DAC chip they're using. I'm gonna guess. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee. Let's compare these two DACs and then figure out if they're worth it. First up, we have the M500 Mark III. I do have the M500 Mark II, I think, upstairs. On the back, by the way, this is from SMSL, you have balanced outputs. You have single-ended RCA outputs. You have a full-sized USB. You have a full-size optical, full-size coaxial, Bluetooth antenna, internal power supply, clicky. Then, of course, this comes with a remote control. This one I'm not as familiar with. Frankly, I've never even heard of this brand before they contacted me and sent it over. Eversolo. A little bit more heft. Little headphone amp on the other side. Big screen. On the back, this one has a few more options. You have balanced outputs, again, single-ended outputs. Over here, you have a coaxial. Underneath there, full-sized optical. Next to here, you have a regular USB printer cable style. And a USB-C. So this is going to be able to run two USB components. Then you have, this looks like a firmware update. And again, internal power supply with Bluetooth. If I had to guess, I'm going to say this one's a little bit more expensive. I can't look up the specs though, because if I look up the specs, then I'm going to probably see the price. So I'm just going to listen to these and then give you my impressions. I imagine that there's going to be 75 different options internally for different roll-offs, sound color modes, etc., etc. One's a brick, the other one's more of a traditional style component, although it's not quite as big as traditional style components. How big is it? This one's 10.5 inches long, wide. You know what's great about this world of ours? That you can start your own website whenever you want to. And it's easier than ever because of Squarespace. Even if you don't have a business, even if you're not a photographer, why not start your own website so there's one repository for all your family's photos? You can have your brother jump in on it, your mom, your sister, cousin Eddie. You can put everything in one place. But if you're a photographer or videographer, you want to make sure there is one place to go where you can put all of your work. If you've never started a website, it can be a daunting task. But don't worry, Squarespace takes all that off the table because of their excellent support page. Want to sell stuff online? They got you covered. Want to send out newsletters? They've got you covered. Want to integrate videos? They've got you covered. It's as easy as typing in a few things. A bunch of options will come up for templates, and then the only thing you have to do is start to fill in those text boxes and drag and drop pictures. And the next thing you know, FletcherGrandCanyonTrip.com is available for you. So run on over to squarespace.com/cheapaudioman. Use the code cheapaudioman to get 10% off your first order. Squarespace, it's the easiest way to start a website. Remote controls. Very similar. Basically have the same amount of buttons. The Eversolo has, looks like one extra button on top right here. But these are very typical remotes for, I don't know, Chinese DACs. The problem is I think these components are a little bit more expensive. So I wish they would upgrade their remote controls, because these are the same remote controls that you'd get with a $200 product. If you're gonna charge a lot for your DACs, maybe make a better remote. So the system I had these hooked up to, and I'll just go over kind of the way I did it. I had a Weem Pro hooked up to each DAC. And then each DAC was going into the Skit Lear? I always forget which one is which. Lear, which is a preamp of sorts. It's also a headphone amp. Then it was going into the Skit G-Horns, which is their low power amplifier. There's two low power amplifiers. This one is the middle to low power amplifier. And then finally going into the Wharfedale Denton 80th edition. Comparing DACs like this is very difficult When there is a cacophony of options for different filter roll-offs, and there is a cacophony of different options on both of these DACs for roll-offs. So what I did was I turned them on and I listened to them. So whatever stock signature they're in, that's how I listen to them. Is it the best way? Probably not. But there's so many variables going on anyway that it doesn't really matter. I just wanted to hear what this DAC sounds like in comparison to this DAC. So let's talk about what they sound like. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you are new here, please subscribe and hit that like button. I do this for a living, so it means the world to me. And I know most of you watching aren't subscribed. So go ahead, hit it. It's free. So this is gonna be a pretty easy one. The M500 Mark III is great, sounds good. A little bit of harshness on top and bassy. You know, it sounds great. Balanced, except for that little on top, a little hard on top. The Eversolo DAC Z8. Yes, Eversolo DAC Z8. Sounds better pretty much in every way. Not sonically per se. I mean, there is some subtle sonic differences. But the big difference is complete separation of instruments, depth of instruments, placement of people. I think this is a pretty high-end DAC. I wouldn't be surprised if this Eversolo cost about, or the price was around $800, maybe even higher. Because it feels a little hefty. I think it may have a linear power supply in it. There's nothing wrong with the power supply in the M500 Mark III. I'm going to guess the prices. I think the Eversolo is a better DAC across the board. I didn't directly compare these to the J2. I think the Eversolo has a little bit of harshness on top, but I also didn't dig into the menus to see if I could change it out, which I'm going to do here in a second. Okay, so I'm going to guess the prices here. I think the M500 Mark III, $450. I think the Eversolo DAC Z8, $750. Okay? I think they both have Sabre chips. Whatever latest and greatest Sabre chip there is. Let's find out together. Let's check it out. All right, so I want to find out the price of the M500 Mark III. Remember, I think it's $450. After this, I'm going to test that headphone outputs. But I want to know how many watts they put out just to give me somewhat of an idea. All right. SMSL M500 III. Again, $450. What I think. I also think it has a Sabre chip. $466. All right, so it's pretty much spot on with this one. Yep, Sabre ES900338 Pro uses 8 channels. Okay, 3 op amps, 1612. All right, all the good stuff. Okay, this is good, and I think if I would have dug into the menus, I think maybe I could have rolled it off a little bit so it didn't feel so harsh on top. And I'm not saying this is like uber harsh. It's a good DAC. Okay, LDAC, Bluetooth, all the good stuff. All right, 2 watts times 2 into 16 ohms, 1 watt times 2 into 32 ohms. So these should have no problem driving my Dan Clark Aeon closed RTs. 13 ohm. They need a bit of juice. All right, here we go. Eversolo. I have not heard of this brand either. So I hope they're even available here because I have not seen any other reviews on this. Eversolo DAC Z8. Remember, I said $750. All right. Hey, look at this. $699 on the Amazon Z8 digital analog converter MQA 9038 Pro. So it's the same. I think it's the same. Is that the same? Yep, it is the same. 9038 Pro. So this is a perfect example of the same DAC chip in 2 different DACs sounding different. Let's see if this thing has a linear power supply. No, actually it says a switching power supply. 1612 OPA chips, which is I think the same as the M500 Mark III. It looks like the Eversolo has an app, which is kind of cool. I still can't really find out. It says here which impedance of headphones it'll drive. It says it's just a high performance headphone amplifier which will drive 16 to 300 ohm hi-fi headphones in both high and low gain output options. The other cool thing about this Eversolo is it has fake VU meters on it. And I know, I'm a sucker for fake VU meters, but I was about bang on with both of these prices. I thought this one was actually $750. It is actually $700. And it looks like there's 8 left in stock. I don't think this is leaving my house. I usually give away stuff that I don't keep because stuff that comes from China is usually left with me. But I kind of like this DAC. So if you're interested, there's 8 of them left. Kind of impressed with this one. And there's nowhere to go but up because I haven't even started really delving into the options here. Final thoughts. They both have capable headphone amps. Ironically though, I think the M500 Mark III has a bit of a better headphone amp. It seemed to drive the headphones a little bit easier, but sonically, I actually liked the Eversolo DAC Z8 better. Sounded better to me. I ran the Hyphaman Edition XS as well as the Dan Clark Aeon RT on there. And the M500 Mark III drove the Dan Clarks better. If there's a bit more juice on the DAC Z8, I think it would have been fine, but I think it doesn't have the power that the M500 Mark III has. Either way, I'm probably not going to be using the Z8 as a dedicated headphone amp anyway, but the option is there if I want it. And it does a good job on most headphones. Both great DACs. I think the M500 Mark III is kind of more of the same stuff we've seen for a while. The Z8 is a little bit different, if only from the aesthetic standpoint, and they are diving into styling differences and options to, I don't know, draw you in more with the music. And I know the fake VU meters is a bit of a gimmick, but I like it, and it sounds great. I think it sounds better than the M500 Mark III. And on paper, those are almost identical. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this Eversolo, but I sure as heck like it. Is it going to beat the J2? I don't know. They're not really in the same category, considering that this is a MQA DAC. This is a DAC that has a fully functioning remote. This is a bit of a different animal. I may AB the J2 and the Eversolo soon. So if you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon, patreon.com/cheapaudioman. Every Sunday night, we have Patreon-only Zooms, Patreon-only Facebook, Patreon-only Discord. You can also use the links in the description. Those are affiliate links, which means if you click and you buy, I do get a commission, but it doesn't cost you any more. So it's a great way to support the channel. You can also buy me a cup of coffee. Put a couple dollars in the tip jar down by the share button. It's the thanks button, but don't feel compelled to buy me anything. You can also sign up for Amazon Music, Tidal, or Roon. Links in the description. Click sign up. They have a 30-day trial period. Even if you quit, I get a couple of dollars. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen maybe through one of your new DACs, like the SMSL M500 Mark III or the Eversolo DAC Z8, and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.